So for the first time in years, the FDA is actually starting to do the things that are making the biggest impact in our world and in our children. They've just banned red dye number 3. And yes, this might be the first of many great movements that are happening right now. But there is a lot of external pressure coming on to the FDA in general that they haven't had in previous years. Not only are the consumers more aware of what they're putting in their body, reading ingredient statements and understanding the impact of those ingredients on their life and on their health, but you're also seeing that brands are starting to go against the FDA in general or other brands that are utilizing red dye number 3 and other chemicals in their products and mostly targeting children. And this is not just hocus pocus. This is real deal clinical studies that have been done over years showcasing that there is hyperactivity in children as well as long-term effects like cancer that are impacting our youth at later ages because they're eating chemicals, specifically the red dye number 3. And those are all kind of the same, where this ingredient has been clinically studied over years and is now proving that it's linked to these types of outcomes. And when there's that much consumer awareness and understanding on these ingredients, and then you have a governmental push understanding that, hey, we see you, we know who you are, and we want to make sure you're actually listening to what the world in general and the clinical studies in general are finding about certain ingredients, and then you're pushing to ensure that those ingredients are taken out of products that are harming our youth and our health. And that is one of the biggest moves, because if you look in general at how the food pyramid is positioned, as I grew up, they would say like, hey, your foundation is you want to have your grains and your wheats and you know, your rice and all that complex carbs, and it's like your meat and all the other chickens and beef and steak and all that stuff is like further down on the list, but your cereal is healthier than your meat and your proteins. And I don't think it takes a very smart human to understand that there's no way an ultra processed food is actually better than a piece of chicken or steak. Personally, not just because in my industry I service some of the largest brands with better for you snacks, and this is right up my alley, but it is a huge initiative that I think is going to make a massive impact in long-term health and position products to actually put ingredients in their products that aren't going to harm for the benefit of $1 or for a visual appeal that might get a product to jump off the shelf. There's a long-term impact. They should be using natural dyes, things that are coming from red beets or whatever the other ingredients are. You can naturally color a product, but that's a big initiative. But when you get the clinical studies to showcase that a specific ingredient is actually harming our youth and is causing hyperactivity, you better do something about it. And I'm very glad that they did. And this is the first step, and I think a line of many years where you're going to start to see a transition and a flip from the way the organization is ran, how they're targeted, the impact they're making in food regulation, and how brands are looking at formulating and creating products when they're actually trying to bring a better for you product in market, or even a product in market in general. They're going to question now whether or not they should use those artificial ingredients. So I think this shift sends a signal to the world that, hey, we're going to do something about it. Here's our first step. There's enough data and enough consumer push to showcase that this specific ingredient needs to be banned across the board in the United States. And that is massive. If you go international and you grab Fruit Loops per se, you grab that in Australia versus here, you'll realize that none of that exists. You see a lot more natural ingredients. And why? It's because that area, that government is pushing and enforcing that there's no way those ingredients are going to be allowed. So the big brands of the world, they have to then reformulate and create a product there. So if they can create it there, why can't they create it here? It's very easy. It's just that's not the American way. They're going to push us with the artificial shit that we've been taking for years and years. And so this is a huge initiative that I'm so happy is pushing into not just FDA in general, but it's going to be pushing into the brands. It's going to be pushed into your life, into your pantry, and ultimately positioned for your kids. But there's another huge thing happening right now in the world, and that's the GLP-1, the Ozempics of the world, right? This fat loss. And I made a video right here where I talk about the impacts of it and the truth behind how it's impacting your life and your health.